Sorry about that. But if you've had time to review the notes and the minutes, would entertain a motion for approval there. Second. Go ahead and call the roll, Megan, please. Sorry.
Okay, Lacey Colbert. Aye. Trevor. Hadley Goldberg.
Aye.
Alexi Pavlov.
Aye.
Pete Renfro.
Aye.
William Oakes.
Aye.
Jeff Garrison.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it.
Thank you. We have no scheduled visitors. No unfinished business, so we'll jump right into our new business. Letter A, which is a preliminary plat for Winston Heights subdivision. Owner is Arthur Hallman Investments LLC. Location is the 2800 block of North 20th Street. Cameron?
Yes, the application is for the preliminary plat of Winston Heights. The proposed preliminary plat does conform to the R1C zoning district with the layout of the subdivision. The infrastructure does have capacity to serve this development, can be extended by the developer for future development here. During the design phase of the infrastructure, staff will further review along with our third-party engineers for compliance on the engineering side. The applicant is working with the Ozark Special Road District regarding the off-site road improvements to 20th Street that were identified in the traffic study. Based on staff's report and findings, staff does recommend approval with the condition that any additional off-site roadway improvements as determined by the Ozark Special Road District be completed. Answer any questions.
Okay. Do we have a representative of, or the applicant himself? Come forward, sir. Your name and address, please.
My name is Mike Salter, 1658.
I'm the civil engineer for Matt Arthur.
Okay. If you want to make any additional comments or anything towards the applicant.
We submitted the plans to Ozark Special Road District. I think we had a comment or two. One was site triangle, which we're going to address all these comments. We went over them with everyone. They said, hold off on making the changes. Let's get the plat in as is, and then we'll make the revisions before it goes to the approved preliminary plat.
Okay.
So they will be addressed. It's pretty straightforward. There's, not much I can add. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. If I'll open it up to public. We may call you back up,
Okay.
sir. Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up for public comments. If anyone wants to make any comments towards this application. It is officially open. I don't see any movement. So I'll go ahead and close the public portion. And open it up to the commissioners for any questions or comments, either to staff or to the engineer that's a representative of. Yes, sir.
I don't know who can answer this question, but I noticed looking at some of the layout that there's a driveway going to a house. And is it just going to be cut off, or?
There's an existing access easement for that driveway, and I'll let the applicant clarify if I misspoken, but to give you an update there, yes, there is an existing access easement to serve that house, and the driveway, my understanding, is a little outside in some areas. That driveway will be relocated inside that access easement and maintained for the access to the existing house.
Yeah, that's correct. That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments that you'd like to make? I'll just try to make a clarification. Cameron, if approved, are we approving it pending the study by special road? How we need to proceed?
You can either approve it as staff's recommendation, or you can make the stipulation on there, with any conditions that the offsite road improvements as determined by OSRD and their engineers to be completed. And they are correct. Right now, the one thing that has come back is a site triangle, which is something we plan to identify on the final plat prior to recording. It doesn't have any concerns or issues with the layout of the subdivision.
Okay. Well, then with that being answered, would you like to make any more comments towards that, sir? Or is that sufficient for you?
That's sufficient, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Then I would entertain a motion to approve based on staff, or we could make the notation for this OSRD to get their final. We can put that in the approval if we would like, or we can just base it off staff approval. So looking for a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion based on staff's recommendations that we approve.
Okay, second. Trevor, go ahead and do a roll call, Megan, when you get there. I'll get back into it, sorry.
It's okay. Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
Lacy Colbert, Pete Renfro.
Aye.
Wim Oaks.
Aye.
Trevor Branch,
Aye.
Hadley Goldberg,
Aye.
Alexi Pavlov.
Aye.
You guys have it.
Thank you. And moving on to our next letter B, which is the Eagle Springs Phase 2 and 3 appeal. I think this is kind of a unique situation we're dealing with tonight, and I'll just turn it over to Cameron for a bit.
Yes, back when the preliminary plat for Eagle Springs Phase 2 was completed, there was a plan to complete a pool and pool house. There was a condition placed on the approval during the staff review and staff comments, and also along what was submitted to the commission and the Board of Aldermen, that pool and pool house shall be completed prior to recording the final plat. The applicant has submitted an application for final plat. During the ARC Administrative Review Committee, we reviewed that final plat and noted that it did not conform to the approval of the preliminary plat because the pool and pool house has not been completed. So with that process, with our denial, the applicant does have the opportunity per chapter section 410-180 to go through an appeal process where he can appeal that denial to the commission. If the commission reviews that, they have three potential things that they can do. They can approve the plat as submitted. They can approve with conditions or disapprove the final plat. If approved, then it moves on forward and the applicant can proceed with final plat recording. It does not go into the Board of Aldermen. If it is denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission, it can go on to the Board of Aldermen for a second. But as staff has went through that process of reviewing that final plat application, it does not conform, so we were not able to approve the final plat of this subdivision. Phase 2 and 3, the applicant did complete both phases at once, and so we are looking at phase 2 and 3 as one review. Be happy to answer any questions on that.
If I could ask a question,
Yes,
you mentioned there's 3 ways to go here, if I understand you correctly.
yeah, so
It is to approve as written, to basically allow him to proceed. The second was to basically not approve or disapprove it, right? What was the third?
So in looking at ordinance 410.180, procedures on the appeals D, basically one just talks about the denial from the ARC, the Administrative Review Committee. And if you look at 3, the Planning and Zoning Commission shall approve with conditions or disapprove the final plat and state the reason thereof. So
I'm
that's,
sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay, approve with conditions. Okay,
Mhm.
gotcha. Thank you.
yes.
And do we have the applicant or the representative of? Yes, sir.
David Counts.
Address, please.
My address,
Your personal address.
1526 East 400 Road, Bolivar, Missouri, 65613.
Thank you.
Yes. This is a unique situation. As Cameron can attest to, homeowners decided not to put a pool in. Was going to write a letter to Cameron, was going to get it put trails in parks because they didn't want to maintain a pool. About 2 months ago, they tell me they want a pool. And I've never had an issue putting a pool in, so we can put a pool in anytime. But the liability of a pool without any occupants in the subdivision and during construction of houses around the pool is not, it just doesn't work. So maybe we could come to an understanding of half of it gets built, there'll be a pool in, or we put a pool in the spring, or I mean, you're gonna put a pool in a subdivision in a bad economic time where who knows when it's gonna be full. And maintenance of the pool, I mean, it doesn't make sense to put the pool in at this point. I mean, we did our World Estates, we put the pool in there toward the end when it was usable. So, I mean, if we can do something where we do so many lots and we get a condition of the final plat, if 80 lots are built, the pool's got to be done. Anything just to make it more feasible for everybody. I mean, I would not want to put the burden on home, even though the associations are a burden to me, but I just, you know, it doesn't work. Okay, so.
Well, as we proceed, if questions or anything comes up, we'll call you back.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Hang on. This is still needs to be opened to the public for comment first. I will open that up if there's anyone that wants to make a comment towards this application of an appeal. I see no movement, so I'll go ahead and close it right after opening of the public side, and now I'll turn it over to our commissioners for questions and comments. Yes, sir.
Couple quick questions, if you don't mind coming back up, sir. Number one, is there a pool in phase one of this?
No, sir.
Okay. Was anything on phase one contingent on, or phase one be responsible for splitting the cost of the pool, or would it just be on
No,
phase
sir.
two and phase
Phase
three?
2 and 3, we're going to allow phase 1 and the homeowners association to access the pool, yes.
But they're not gonna pay anything as,
They're paying the homeowners due.
okay,
And I've talked to Scott Fiddler and Chris Franklin multiple times. And I should have had them come tonight because they would prefer the pool to go in later as well.
how many, what's the, and I was trying to look there, it's so small for me to read, I can't. What's the total number of plots? Is it 133 or is it bigger than?
166,
166.
165 buildable homes.
Okay.
With 166, 166 is counting the pool lot.
Okay, that's what I was, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry.
So ideally, when would be the best time to get the pool in?
You know, ideally, you'd want the pool to be usable, you'd want. A pool takes a lot of maintenance. And if it's not used, it's actually harder on the pool than if it is used. I would say I would want at least 80 of half of the subdivision finished.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're talking about phase 2, right?
Phase 2 and 3, they're combined.
Okay,
There's 166 total.
gotcha.
Okay.
Anyone else? Questions? The questions can be to Mr. Council or Cameron. Either way, if you got something.
Yes, I had one question. I apologize if I didn't see it in the packet earlier, but what was the reason for having it, requiring it to be built before phase 2 and 3?
During the review process prior to making application for preliminary plat and submitting to the commission and board, there was a discussion to requiring a pool due to the size of the subdivision. And then working through that review process with the applicant and their consultants, it was agreed upon to complete this pool prior to recording a plat.
This may be a Cameron question too, or potentially for you. Have we had anything before in the city where it was a pool was contingent after a certain amount of lots got built or anything like that? Is that anything that's come through the city before?
We've had a prior application where a subdivision did require the pool that didn't get constructed, and so it continued to be delayed, and then eventually there was an agreement the applicant did with the board, or the developer did with the board, of escrowing a pool. That becomes pretty tricky in doing that, because then we potentially take on some liability with collecting that escrow, and there's nothing to base that on. But yes, there's been one other instance, maybe about a year ago.
So as far as like pool placements, normally, I would kind of think that'd be like the last thing that would be done in a plat or in a subdivision. Is that not typically the case?
In this particular application, it was just identified through their approval and notes to be done prior to the recording of final plat. So
Okay,
whether they did at the beginning or the end, that was up to the developer to construct that.
gotcha.
Cameron, your thoughts on? Well, let me redirect, Mr. Counts.
Yes, sir.
You're not against building the pool,
No, sir.
correct?
I was against it at first, but that's the only way we could get the subdivision approved, is to put a pool in.
So you're not refusing to build the pool,
sir.
you're just asking for some leeway to build it later,
Correct,
right?
correct.
Okay,
I mean, it just doesn't, like I said, it just doesn't. And I know what the ordinance state, I don't know, actually do not know what the ordinance states, but if you do require a pool, you might do some changing in it, because putting the pool in before there's no houses is not a good idea. I mean, with construction all around the pool area, the dust, the filters, just, you know, something needs to change with that. I mean, maybe 80% of the subdivision complete it before the pool has to be completed. I mean, you guys have the power to withhold occupancy permits, not issue building permits. You know, there's got to be an easier process. I mean, as Cameron can attest, we went through several months with the homeowners association of not wanting to pool. We put trails in, we graded for parks, we did everything they asked us to do. And then at the end, they said, oh, we decided we want to pool. So not only did we not spend the money on the pool, which we probably shouldn't have done that now. Because, I mean, they hold you hostage. And in my opinion, we should have said, okay, we're not doing it. We're just going to do the pool. But we didn't, because I spoke with people at the city and they said, well, if you can get a letter and that's what the homeowners wants, that's what this is about.
Right.
So it was my understanding, no pool was in. We, like I said, we cut trails, we cleaned up the pond that was there. And then one of the ladies in the homeowner association, oh, I think we need a pool. So that's what's put us in this situation.
Okay. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Counts,
Yes, sir.
got one more.
How many houses, how many homeowners are there
57 lots in the first phase.
in the first phase of 67?
50, the way it was developed and the way it was platted. We're allowing, I guess you could say for easy term, phase 1 to be included in phase 2 and 3. Instead of, because rightfully, we could just say pools for phase 2 and phase 3 only. And we wouldn't have to take any input, but it wouldn't be fair. They live in Eagle Springs to not allow them to use the pool.
Yeah, but, and they're also having a voice in what's taking place now.
Unfortunately, yeah. And I don't mind homework. I mean, they're great, but you know, I should have got something in writing. I should have, if I'd have got something in writing, it still wouldn't have mattered for what we were appealing. So, I mean, I just explained the situation we were put into.
Right. So, but my understanding, Cameron, excuse me, my understanding is that the size of the overall project or plat is a pool is required.
Based on the direction staff was given back at the time of preliminary plat, yes, the pool was required. It is something that, if you recall, several months ago when our single family ordinances came through,
Right.
that was something we're getting further direction to include in the requirements. of the zonings and the single family ordinances. But at this plat, it was requested staff to require the pool.
That this plat would have, 2 and 3 would have
Preliminary
carried
plat.
over.
Yes.
Thank you, sorry.
Thank you, sir. More of a comment, but I'll end with who's got one? You got one, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to confirm one thing. So nothing at all in plat one or the first phase has anything mentioned of pool. Correct. Okay. My second question is, can I ask a question of a fellow commissioner? Or is that not something that we can do?
Can what now?
Can I ask a question of another commissioner and ask for their input on this? Something. I don't know if I can, or can I just make a comment?
No, I mean, you can speak amongst. the
Okay, that's fine.
commissioners.
Okay. Well, my question was, being a real estate agent, what effect does a pool versus not a pool have right now? I mean, obviously, the real estate market's a little bit different than it was, like you mentioned. But is that still something that's bringing people into, is that helping home prices if there's a pool in there? If anything, I just know that's your expertise. So that was my question. If you have anything you could mention on that.
So yeah, I mean, a pool's always beneficial, but my kind of opinion on this is there's not an HOA representative here to make an issue. My biggest issue right now is of safety and structure. And, according to the builder, you're putting a pool that has to be serviced and maintained, and there's nobody around it. And debris and construction and all that, but. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I'll give my opinion for what it's worth. The pool needs to be built. We're all in agreement to that. We need to come up with the best scenario. And this is no disrespect to anybody, but we need to do something within the requirements, within the inspection process to ensure it gets built. So I would ask Cameron from the city, and I just flat don't know. At what process would that be best suited? And I will say, to benefit the developer and the city, I don't want to leave anybody out here at all. But we do need to ensure it happens. But how's that best accomplished?
At this point, moving forward, I don't know if I've got a good answer, but that was the original approver. That was what that was in there. That was the intent of approving the preliminary plat to get this built. Now we're kind of considering of not following or staying with that original approval. So at this point, I'd probably put it back to the commission to consider those conditions. But if it's recorded, then once the final plat's recorded, these lots can be sold and be pulling a building permit on. Doesn't matter which lot where on a typical recording of final plat. So I think the commission would just have to consider what condition they would want to put on there so staff could follow. Yep, so give me just a second. I'll scroll to the ordinance too.
If you go to a third tab, it's on the last page.
Yeah.
I'm very top.
I gotta do some rotating here. Nope, you're fine. So it's in the ordinance section 410180. And after following the denial from the ARC Administrative Review Committee, basically the committee is an internal staff committee that reviews to make sure it conforms to the preliminary plat that was approved. But the options for the commission shall approve with conditions or disapprove the final plat and state the reason thereof. And then it goes on in case the notation of the action. It just kind of talks about that process and the approval.
If we disapprove it, then the board involvement can still have, they're still here for board involvement.
If the Plain Zoning Commission disapproves, then the applicant within 90 days of this action of the commission request an appeal to the Board of Alderman, it could go on to the Board of Alderman for
And that's like,
consideration.
you mentioned three pieces. The first piece, but you guys,
No.
or the second.
No, the three pieces is all just the commission. So the first step was the administrative ARC committee. We denied it. And then this process three that's before you tonight, you've got three options to approve, approve with conditions or deny. So that's those three pieces. If the commission does deny this, then the applicant can make a request to go to the Board of Alderman for a final consideration determination of the final plat.
Thank you.
So if it was approved, if the appeal is approved, you mentioned a while ago, lots could be sold and building permits could be issued
Yeah.
for lots.
If it's approved to record the final plat, then yes, those lots can be sold. They can be pulled, the owner can pull an application for a building permit and move forward just as it would any plat. They can retain all the lots or they can sell the lots because then it's a legal tract of land to be conveyed.
So simply approving it would basically forego the requirement of the pool.
Approving it would
Basically.
forego the requirement of having that pool and pool house completed before recording the final plat. And hence meaning that he can go ahead and record that final plat
Okay,
without it being completed.
you got something else coming up? Come up.
Yes, please. I'm not asking for approval of a subdivision without conditions. I would not ask anybody to do that. I mean, we can put conditions on it. I'm more than okay with that. So I'm not just here asking for a blanket approval. No, I would expect there to be somebody held liable and I would expect conditions. I've offered multiple times to pull cost $250. I'll put $250,000 in escrow. But as me and Cameron discussed, that puts a liability because you're not pool builders. I understand that. So like I said earlier, conditions of sell so many lots after a certain date, not issue an occupancy permit, which the city has that approval. Woodcrest, we just finished, I don't know, not too long ago, we had an issue not getting secondary pedestals from Empire. They just couldn't get them because of COVID. We put a condition on the permit where no occupancies would be issued without permanent power. And it seemed to work for me. Hopefully it worked for the city, which we're past that issue now. They actually had someone that finished it like they should have, so. But that's it. Okay, thank you for your consideration.
Appreciate it.
Just to clarify what he's referring to is there was a not a mercy situation, but kind of hence the sense that way the Board of Alderman approved that allows staff to go ahead and start issuing building permits with the lacking of shortage of electric transformers and water meters so that they can move forward, but they could not get an occupancy until those items were completed. That was a mercy situation to keep the plats moving.
Cameron, question real quick. So if we did a approve with conditions, say half of the subdivision would have to be completed. He could still sell the lots and record the plat and sell the lots. At what point or what verifies that once it's half completed or based on our whatever condition we set?
I don't know that there's anything to be done once it's recorded to prevent selling of lots. I'm not sure how we would know that. That'd be something that's outside of our control. So I think it'd have to be tied to the occupancy or permitting of lots, not necessarily the selling of lots.
So we could withhold, or the city could withhold occupancy because of an unbuilt pool, correct?
I guess in my mind, it would probably be something that some condition about an occupancy permit shall not be issued until the completion of the pool.
Right. Okay.
Amanda, do you have any suggested verbiage or conditions if we were to agree on a condition?
I would support the suggestion of Mr. Smith on his tying it to the occupancy. Or using the option of allowing the Board of Aldermen to solve this issue. As they have already handled a similar situation in the past through a contract with that particular developer.
We are always ready to take a motion. Just throw that out there.
I move to disapprove and let the Board of Aldermen do it. They still have a voice with the Board of Aldermen, so I move to disapprove it. And then let it move up the chain to the Board of Aldermen.
Okay, so we have a motion to disapprove the appeal based upon moving it towards, I'm sorry,
Nope, Kevin.
moving it on to the Board of Aldermen for a final decision. Do I have a second? Or, yeah, second motion,
Second.
okay? Then we need a roll call, Megan, please.
River Branch,
There we go.
Alexi Pavlov,
Aye.
Lacy Colbert. Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
Wim Oaks,
Aye.
Pete Renfro,
Aye.
and Hadley Goldberg.
Aye.
As have.
Okay. Moving to the final item of the new business. Letter C, an ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, chapter 405 zoning regulations to amend language regulating marijuana licensed facilities. Cameron. Or should I give it to you? Okay. I thought that might be the case. Proceed.
Yes, I'll introduce this agenda item and I'll be happy to answer any questions. As you know, in 2018, the Missouri voters approved an amendment to the Missouri Constitution authorizing medical marijuana. And at that time, the city of Ozark brought forward zoning amendments that amended our zoning for commercial districts and agricultural districts to allow for medical marijuana facilities. The language used reflected the language at the time of the Missouri Constitution. Just in November, the Missouri voters again approved an amendment to the Missouri Constitution authorizing now what's called adult use marijuana. So that's for individuals over 21. So you have two components to the marijuana law now in our Constitution. You still have medical marijuana, but you also have adult use marijuana. And because of these changes that just went into effect on December 8th, the city of Ozark needs to look at amending their zoning language because we had used the 2018 constitutional amendment language that identified everything as a medical marijuana facility. So what we're proposing is to amend it to reflect just a marijuana licensed facility. So that way it will cover both medical marijuana and what they're referring to as a comprehensive marijuana, which would sell both medical and adult use, which is non-medical. The way the Constitution amendment is drafted, the first opportunity for the licenses to be issued by the Department of Health and Senior Services for what's called a comprehensive facility would be to those that are existing licensed medical marijuana facilities. So if you have an existing licensed facility, it is likely that they will turn into a comprehensive facility and sell both adult use and medical. And those licenses are expected to be issued on February 8th or 6th, somewhere in there. There was a time frame that if they're not approved by that time frame, then they're automatically approved. And essentially the way the Constitution is drafted, if you have an existing facility, it's operating obviously under the laws established. So it is likely that they will receive that approval from the Department of Health and Senior Services. So the proposed amendments that are before you tonight amend the Ozark zoning code not to change any of the zones where they're currently allowed or expand them in any way. It just modifies the language so it is consistent with the Constitution. So if you notice, the definitions have been amended to remove reference to all of the definitions. So now we're just talking about a licensed facility, whether that be a commercial facility like a dispensary or an agricultural facility like a cultivation facility. And then we remove medical from the other facilities such as an infusion facility or a testing facility. The agricultural zoning code section is amended also to remove the medical reference, but nothing has changed in terms of the requirements for an agricultural a cultivation facility that's located in an agricultural zoning district. The commercial aspect would be a dispensary. Nothing's changed in those respects. They are currently allowed in C2, C4, and general mixed use, and that will continue. The only thing that again has dropped is the reference to medical. So just taking that into account. And then the general code sections were largely drafted on what was allowed under the First Amendment and have been updated to reflect what's allowed under the current amendment. But with that, I'll turn it over to any questions. Just to touch on one thing before we get too in depth, if there was an interest in banning adult use marijuana. The constitutional amendment has actually been drafted to set forth a provision that requires the Board of Aldermen to send it to the voters, or if you have a referendum process, which we don't currently have, that the citizens could file for a vote to ban that sale of recreational or adult use marijuana. It would not prohibit medical marijuana. However, that has to go forward on a presidential election. So in 2024 would be the first opportunity. And at that time, it would have to pass by a 60% majority vote. So that is maybe a little difficult, but also important to understand that prohibiting it may not be a likely option, and it would have to go through that voting process, and the Board of Aldermen would have to put that on the ballot. With that, I'll open it to questions. I know it's a lot to take in.
Well, if who's got one? Huh? No, go. Go. Oh, you're ready. Are you on? Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I've got a concern, but I don't know if anything can be done about it. What term is used for the actual sale of the marijuana products? Is that called a dispensary?
Yes, it's a dispensary. And so we're
Okay.
focusing, when we talk about a dispensary, on the commercial use, just like we would look at a an alcohol store, you know, selling alcohol or something of a similar nature.
Okay. Well, throughout the requirements and the limitations, I'll just call it both. When we refer to the distance, it can be these can be placed, school, church, daycare, all those. I'm missing some, I'm sure. We adopted originally back in for the medical marijuana, it's 100 feet door to door, right?
Mhm.
My concern is where this stuff is sold
Mhm.
is still within that 100 feet limitation, correct?
There's
Read it right.
There's nothing changing in relation to the distance requirements currently, and under the proposed changes, any dispensary can be located 100 feet within a secondary school, elementary school, daycare, or church, as long as they were existing at the time that they have applied.
Is that anything that can be changed?
The distance requirements in the Constitution set forth that you can go less distance, so less restrictive, and allow them to locate closer to those other facilities, or you can only go up to the 1,000 feet that they set that at. The city proposed 100 feet because city staff felt originally that it was appropriate to make it equal to the distance requirements existing in our city code for the liquor license, that it was a similar type of business, and those same concerns could be felt with the liquor license. There was not support from staff to amend that because the existing facilities, again, will likely get that comprehensive license, and since they already have a location, it's unlikely that they will, they would be grandfathered in that location. So, So staff is not suggesting a change. It is easy to apply since it is 100 feet across the board for both liquor and marijuana sales. So it's not being proposed to be changed. And to enter a dispensary, you would either have to have the medical marijuana card if you were under 21. If you're over 21, you can enter it. So again, if the concern is a school or a daycare, no child would be entering unless they did have that medical marijuana card.
You know, I'm just concerned with the proximity it could be with some of our elementary schools, bothers me some. But I don't know that that can be changed.
Is there anything in the Missouri Constitution as far as distance?
Yes, the Constitution sets forth that you can't require it to be further than 1,000 feet. The city of Ozark again decided to reduce that distance to 100 feet. At that time, to be consistent with the liquor licensing laws. And then the staff does not recommend changing it at this time, just to keep it consistent. And the constitutional amendment has additional regulations for the licensure of the dispensaries to a point that staff felt it was adequate for the safety and protection of it being in that proximity to those facilities.
Question and comment. At this point in Ozark, is there only that's the dispensary at the Walmart shopping center? Is there any others? I was trying to wrap my head around where we were right now. Is that
I believe the only one is off of the second exit in Ozark.
okay?
The ones that are like by Walmart,
Yeah.
South Side, that's not an actual licensed dispensary.
Okay.
The only one that we have in town that's currently a medical license is the Old Family Video up off of CC.
Okay.
And by St. George's Donuts in that area.
And then my second thing is, I remember you talked to us probably, I don't know, like a year ago or something about that we can't distinguish between. So yes, I agree with you that I don't want to be close to elementaries, but we have so many churches in Ozark that I think if we did 1,000 feet, and then, I mean, I'm just saying, like, there's churches all over the place. I think that they wouldn't be able to come in and we wouldn't get a sales tax dollars off of it. And I mean, I'm not saying that I want dispensaries all over the place, but I think, I remember you saying that we can't distinguish those, so we couldn't say just schools. If I was interpreting that correctly, as you told us before, or something else, where it was for signs, you had something about signs that we can distinguish. But I mean, I agree with that that's a concern for schools, but I think that it's hard piggying back that in with churches because there's so many, I'm just thinking of South Street. We have churches all over the place on South Street. Yeah, you're right.
And I'll add to that, when staff looked at the medical license, we did a map showing the 1,000-foot circles, bubble diagrams. And yeah, it resulted in hardly any property to even have one of these facilities in the city. So at that time, we strongly suggested reducing it by quite a bit. And again, mimicking our liquor license so we can track it all equally.
Was there something, seems like I saw an additional tax that we are able to attach to that? Could you expound upon that a little bit?
Yes, the constitutional amendment also authorizes local jurisdictions to pass an additional 3%, up to 3% sales tax on the retail sale of adult use marijuana. So it would not apply to medical marijuana. It would only apply to the adult use. And that's in addition to your current 2.375% sales tax. The Board of Aldermen did consider this at a first reading at the last Board of Aldermen meeting in an ordinance to put that on the April 4th ballot in 2023 to send it to the voters. And we do anticipate a second reading on that shortly.
Did I make a mistake? Should I have opened this up to public comment?
Yes,
Yeah, that's my fault. Okay, let me ask, have you said everything you want to say at the moment?
Yes, I'm happy to answer more
Sorry.
questions, though.
Okay.
It's okay.
It's my fault. If there's anyone in the audience that'd like to speak towards the amendment that's being proposed, you're more than welcome to step to the podium. And if you would, please give your name and address, please.
My name's Mark Hendren. Carly, my address is currently an RV in Bolivar. I'm the president of Four Farms. We have a cultivation facility in Humansville. We have 4 dispensaries, including the one we've just acquired here. And happy to be in Ozark. Just left the store about an hour ago. Pretty good little business there. And I'm here to answer any questions. We have 4 dispensaries. We've been in this business from the very beginning.
Do you need some sort of formal address? They didn't really give one.
I can give you, 2402 South Jackson and Joplin.
Go ahead.
I can ask questions.
Sure.
I was just curious, are there any plans to put another location in town?
Can't.
Okay, you can only do.
There are 100, currently there are 100, there are 202 dispensaries authorized and allocated to the state of Missouri.
Okay.
DHSS has the authority to expand that. It's unlikely.
I was just curious.
It's unlikely.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we'll call you back up.
Sure.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Don Kearns, 1202 East Millie Lane, Ozark. I just want clarification on this. We talk about the one by Walmart. The difference between the one by Walmart and one on CC, which is dispensary. So what's the difference between the two? Clarification.
A dispensary is licensed through the Department of Health and Senior Services.
Okay.
And there are a certain number allocated by the state constitution based on the congressional district as it was drawn when that first constitutional amendment went through. Those licenses will dictate whether they can sell medical marijuana or a comprehensive facility that could sell adult use. There are other types of stores that you may see that have advertisement about paraphernalia or vape or something to that effect. Those would not be selling actual marijuana, but they may be selling something that has some of the components in it, but not the
Okay.
the actual drug, what makes it a drug.
Okay, thank you. And then one more quick clarification on the 3% sales tax. Is that going to be designated for a certain use? Am I misunderstanding that or?
Comment.
Okay.
I forgot to mention that in the ballot language that's proposed by the Board of Aldermen, they did indicate that the additional 3% would be dedicated to the Ozark Police Department. Thank
Okay,
you for
thank you.
clarifying that.
It's a good place to put it.
Anyone else? That'd be you two. No, okay. I'll close the public portion of the meeting and turn it over to commissioners for questions and comment. If you have any more. And if not, I would assume a motion to approve as written would be requested or, oh, you got,
I'll move to approve the ordinance as written.
second? You get the second, Megan? Okay. So feel free to do a roll call, please.
Hadley Goldberg,
Oh.
Alexi Pavlov,
Aye.
Trevor Branch, Pete Renfro, Wim Oaks, Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
and Lacy Colbert. Okay, you guys have it.
All right, after that, we'll have a discussion and I will give Cameron the floor for our 2023 calendar.
Yes, in your packet, you'll see the proposed meeting calendar for the 2023 year. Nothing specific to point out other than just kind of follows what we've been doing the fourth Monday of the month for the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings. And then if there is a Tuesday that they might fall on, it's noted with a T because of Monday being a holiday. Along with that, kind of identifies the application deadlines, cutoff dates for publication and so forth. Also, it identifies the Board of Aldermen meetings that follow the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings. With that, be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? Oh, sorry. Might help.
So I have a quick question, just so. If we had a Board of Aldermen meeting fall, like on one of those days where we have like 5 inches of snow or 6 inches of snow or something like that, what's the procedure for that? Can we do it virtually? I'm just saying, like, sometimes there's times where like, you know, you can't get out of your house with the, or at least a Floridian like me, who was originally born in Florida, is afraid to drive in the 6 inches of snow.
We do have some authority to consider if we do have a meeting, if the city hall is not closed and something's not canceled for planning and zoning, we do have the authority to allow you guys to. My understanding, planning and zoning commissioners don't have to be seen, but they just have to be heard. So a video is not required of a face, but we do have the authority to allow that. However, we are encouraging and requiring for the most part to be in person.
I was just curious.
Anyone else? Okay, commission comments. We'll just go around the room. Hadley, I'll start with you this time.
I know you're working on getting stuff out to there. I appreciate that. That's true. So, thank you.
Lexi. Lynn. Pete. Trevor. Macy, you good?
Merry Christmas.
I'll turn it. You got anything? You know, staff.
All
Megan,
good.
Cameron. Everybody tells me they're good. Then I think we are at the point of motion to adjourn. Somebody give me one.
Make motion.
I'll second. All in favor, good enough to say aye?